Dear glorious leader and ruler Harstem, I am here to inform you that Terran is simply Imba. Tanks, Widowmines and Banshees are impossible to stop. I think I got a decent opening managing to push back the early game aggression of the enemy. I understand that a tech advantage is key in strategy games, so I tried to get my upgrades out quite fast. I expanded to 2, then 3 bases, and slowly began to build up an army in preparation to assault the enemy. However, my progress was delayed by a mine drop, which forced me to divert my attention and shore up the defenses home, which I did with my photon cannons. Later on, I made multiple attacks with an army that had 2-2-2 and later 3-3-3. And yet, the army didn't manage to do much against the Terran. Archons disappeared as though they were made of snot. Immortals just died, and Zealots went straight to the Shadow Realm. Then came the true problem: Banshees. They are too fast for my army to catch, and they wreaked havoc on my economy. I tired to build cannons, but they didn't do anything, with them failing time and time again. I ask, how can you fight off Banshees if the only defecna you have is so worthless? I'd have 7 to 8 cannons, and they would fail to push back a Banshees. This replay should prove that Protoss ground is worthless and terrain is Imba. This imbalanced complaint form was sent in by Dragon Will, a North American gold player at 3050 MMR, asking, is Terran imbalanced? Or does he suck? And we're gonna find out. I think one of my favorite things in that imbalanced complaint form is I know that a tech advantage is key in strategy games, so I went for good upgrades. Usually people, when they talk about tech, we're talking about unit tech. So, for example, Templar Archives, Fleet Beacon, or like getting Storm. That's like when you're teching up. Otherwise, we just call it upgrading. And although upgrades are very important, it just made me happy to see. All right, that 15 years after the start of StarCraft 2, we still haven't really figured out good definitions that everyone can understand at an instant. We apparently also haven't figured out good build orders in the opener that everyone can figure out, as we're going for a double chrono, single gas, double pylon, zealot core into a nexus at some point. I don't know, entirely second gas. All right. Yes, one of my favorite things when figuring out tight openers is how to oversaturate my minerals as much as possible and minimize my gas income. Here I was trying so hard, and Beluga Dragon already has this figured out. Look at this. Neat oversaturation here on the minerals. Gas could have been built earlier, because money is always going to be available if you're not planning on taking a fast nexus. Zealot pops out. I'm not sure if this is for defense or offense. I think his goal here is to defend something with it. Meanwhile, his opponent is... I don't think understands where the other dude has spawned. He's moving to the left. I think he probably thought his opponent spawned here, and now it's like, wait a second, that is not what happened. This is gold. This is gold indeed. I wonder if Novalgan is aware of the fact that this is actually a 3-player map. This is a weird-looking 2-player map. It's gonna scout here. I'm really curious what's gonna happen. Is he gonna scout like around in the main? He's like, what the hell? No nexus. That's weird. Or this is just, oh no, he straight up stands there. All right, here I am being in negative Nancy. No need for that. 3 zealots coming out at the start. Now, this of course would have been extremely uncomfortable against an early game Reaper or multiple early game Reapers, as there's no way to catch that Reaper. Like, theoretically, this is absolutely not allowed, but as this is gold level, having a couple of zealots might actually be decent enough defense against a Reaper, because people do not know how to control their Reaper. And as a result of that, you could say, you know what? This might just be okay. We've had 0 scouting information so far, and although I always do like not scouting, I think just getting a confirmation on where your opponent spawned can be quite useful. Double batteries are coming down, both of them in the front. I'm not entirely sure if I would build them ever like this. No, actually, I am entirely sure that I never would, but I'd rather have a battery than no battery, because it just adds a layer of safety. And on top of that, we're getting the charge upgrade. We have a lot of gas in the bank. This is how you know a build order is good, is when 3 minutes and 40 seconds into the game, you are floating 400 gas. Remember when I said you usually don't really take a fast gas when you're expanding? Yeah, this is wise, because now you're floating 450 gas, which is even more gas than you would have had if you hadn't taken the assimilator. So you just have worse mineral eco due to taking your Nexus later, for no real reason. So this entire early game has been extremely mediocre, like actually extremely mediocre, but I'm not expecting a very high level early game when I'm watching gold players play. So I'm actually kind of okay with it. Cyclone comes in. Yeah, this is a major issue. Should have been a major issue for the Zealot players when you have units with very low movement speed without range and a fast unit with range shows up. Usually this Cyclone should have been capable of killing, well, infinite Zealots pretty much, because the Zealots can never touch it until charge finishes up, which is in about 30 seconds from now. So definitely enough to kill 1 or 2 Zealots. Luckily, Cyclone Micro here on the side of Novel Jin was not good, was not correct. And we are going to be seeing mech. Mech is one of these things that gets complained about a lot. And actually also at the high level lately has been seeing some play. I'm not sure how long that is going to last, but it's interesting to see mech kind of make a comeback against Protoss. And usually when things make a comeback at a higher level, we also end up seeing it at lower levels because people like emulating higher level players. Double factory, starport out, armory on the way, triple CC as well. So good eco for Novolgin. He's not really throwing... No, he actually is throwing down all the mules. There's a little bit of mulage in the main base. Soon gonna have a mule on the natural as well. So it's going to have a really neat income. At the same time, Beluga Dragon, you know, he's confirmed the fact that his opponent built a Cyclone and is happy with that information. Says, I don't need no more. What I really do need is a pylon a little bit further forward to power these batteries from the front, or to make a path to the Nexus. Is it possible that Beluga Dragon believes that in order to build a Nexus on a base, you need to have a pylon nearby for a power field? So I remember when I first started playing StarCraft 2 that I actually did believe that. No, okay, so he's aware. This pylon crawl doesn't make a whole lot of sense due to there being... For the people that don't know this, we have a mine drop here, dealing some pretty serious damage. Like 15 worker kills, what the hell? 13, I can't count. 4 plus 9. Hate to see it. Yeah. Hate to see it. It's quite a bit of damage, but probably not really the end of the world. In this type of game, there's often so little aggression that you can lose 20, 30, 40 workers, and your opponent just gives you the time to rebuild it. As long as you do that fast enough, usually life is fine. What was I gonna say? Right, there's a difference between fast warping pylons and slow warping pylons. So if you have a pylon that is connected with a Nexus, like this one, or connected with a gateway, like this one, you get a fast warp in, and the warp ins are like what, 5 or 4 seconds faster, 5 seconds faster, I think it is. So it's always nice to warp in on those close by pylons. Otherwise, you're just going to end up waiting longer majority of the time. We have triple forge plus Templar Archives coming in as well right now. Still haven't really seen any action here whatsoever. Hell, we're 7 minutes and 15 seconds into the game, and Beluga Dragon still isn't entirely sure where his opponent has spawned. He knows his opponent is a Terran player because a Cyclone has made its way across the map, but neither player here is really putting on any pressure. I like that he said I had to divert my plans due to the Widow Mine drop, but it seems like the plans are still exactly the same, and the plans are not building workers and not scouting. Like nothing has really changed there for me. Nothing has really changed there.
Later.
So Beluga finished up his 111 upgrades, has created an army of 140 supply without Storm, but with a Templar in there, and finally decides to go for a little stroll, perhaps triggered by the fact that there's a sensor tower on this side of the map, figured out where his opponent most likely spawned, and decides to go blindly, may I add, into a position, which is freaking crazy. Sees 4 tanks shooting while you're walking up a ramp, and still decides to go in and actually win the battle. This is legitimately one of the craziest attacks I've ever seen, and it absolutely works. At this point, this game is now officially over. We waited 10 minutes and 55 seconds for Beluga Dragon to figure out where the opponent is on the first try, A-move there, and instantly win the game. Like, this is actually an unlosable situation. We have 3 Immortals, 4 Stalkers, 1 Archon. There's nothing that can kill this army. There's like half a tank. do have I think there was a mine drop going into this main base. Luckily, we already have 17 cannons in every single base, just in case something was going to hit. Beluga Dragon decides to kill his opponent's base, all defensive units minus the one tank, and then pull back. This is what is considered a mistake. Like, you could say, how can he know that there's a forward base here? Well, there's a sensor tower there. Like, at least kill the sensor tower and then accidentally figure out that there's a base. You know, it is one of these things. You also have an observer, so if you're not entirely sure if you can break into the natural, you could have just checked with an observer before going in. Now, I know that Beluga Dragon is not super fond of checking stuff before going in. He just, you know, he likes to go in blind, as we saw going up this ramp, but yeah, a little safety check wouldn't hurt. And seeing a single tank there while still having 2 immortals probably would have allowed him to actually kill his opponent, as he had significantly more units. But instead, he's gonna go back home, macro up, and say, you know what I really need? After killing my opponent's third base, 2 more cannons at my own third. Because you know what they say, once ahead, stay ahead. Not get further ahead, stay ahead. And the best way to stay ahead is by bunkering up at your third base. Double robotics facilities, a robo-way being added, 3/3 upgrades. His upgrades actually are pretty sick right now. He has been really quick with the upgrades. The sad thing is, against mech, armor upgrades don't matter that much. I'm not saying it's a massive waste of resources, but it is definitely a waste of resources. Because you really just care about attack. Mech units have very high single damage output, so the armor just doesn't do as much. Armor is much better against units that attack very fast, battlecruisers, marines, or units that attack, 2 or 3 or 5 times at the same time. Like against carriers, for example, having armor or carapace upgrades is freaking huge. Beluga Dragon says, these rocks are in the way, let me kill them and go for my second move out of the day. And once more, ooh, there's a planetary this time. I do feel like this kind of should just work. Like, this is not the greatest synchronized attack. There's 5 immortals in the back that only start shooting after the first 10 zealots die. A bunch of these immortals probably never really see any real action. So this fight went significantly worse than the previous one. Actually, significantly worse than the previous one. I thought it was still going to be fine, but the help of the planetary and the positioning of the tank backwards, as well as the terrible fighting, actually kind of hurt Beluga Dragon. He is expanding behind all of this. So taking that forward base. It's been even in income for a little while. So he's up in workers, but there's 3 orbitals out. So that means that mules are going to be contributing onto the mineral income for Novogin as well. Who, by the way, is going into Banshee at this point. We have a second starport on the way. We already have 2 Banshees out, so those numbers are growing. Now, there is one thing that I really like against Banshees. It is always funny for me to see, but very frequently when Terran players go mass Banshees, Protoss players believe that they're not allowed to hard counter it. So they'll see the Banshee, it's like, it is fast, it is invisible, and it can't shoot up. And then they'll try to counter it with Stalkers. It's like, what about the main weakness of it not shooting up? It's like, the Phoenix is legitimately the hardest counter to the Banshee that exists, because it can keep up with the Banshee even when it has the speed. And together with the help of Observer Speed or an Oracle, you can actually just slaughter Banshees, and they're completely useless. This is why mass Banshee against Protoss is just not that common, because there's such a hard counter against them in the form of the Phoenix. The moment even like 2 Phoenix are out, your Banshees are on a massive timer. So going multi-starport Banshee is a huge move that generally doesn't pay off unless you have a lot of momentum behind you as the Terran. But as this is a gold game, momentum just doesn't exist. This is a space completely devoid of any type of momentum, because players just sit back. Like, this is more campaign style, I often feel like. Which is why playing the campaign is a great start for the ladder if you end up being in gold. Like, people kind of come at you in waves. Like, every 2.5 minutes there will be a wave. It could be the same tech unit, sometimes slightly higher tech. Sometimes it's a lot. Sometimes they come at your third base. In the case of Beluga Dragon, he'll always come at your third base, which means you only need defenses in one position. It's like one of the early campaign missions, pretty much, you know? Like, the upgrades get better the longer it goes on. The AI does micro significantly better than Beluga Dragon does, though. I feel like if you just learn how to properly A-move, that might have actually already won this game. And also getting some type of anti-air might also be neat. Does kill the base, planetary goes down, but the Banshee count continues to grow. The tank count remains somewhat stable. And now goes for a Colossus. I'm not entirely sure what this is supposed to be countering. There's no Marines. There's not like an insane Hellion Cyclone count either, where you say, hey, the Colossus range helps a little bit. Tanks absolutely blast Colossus. Thors are fine against Colossus as well, so... yeah, like I said, I'm extremely curious what the Colossus is for, but it is here. It is a little bit of cash invested in the guys, you know, the giraffes with the lasers. Completely fine. We're now going to see our first bit of Banshee attacks. All right. Novelgin has played enough campaign to know that at some point in the campaign, you need to take matters into your own hands. And that time is now. Luckily, Beluga Dragon already has cannons everywhere, in particular protecting this area. I don't quite know what these two cannons are protecting, but maybe if a battlecruiser were to teleport into this exact spot, these two cannons are going to be the most useful cannons you'll have seen in your entire freaking life. It's actually crazy how great these would be. Although the battlecruiser could just fly away. Ooh, can I get a target fire here on the cannon? Double Stargate is already on the way, by the way, as well as observer speed. So look at this anticipation to this problem. That is insane. That is very well done, honestly. So he already has a counter ready. You can just set an observer, by the way, on these Banshees and kind of follow them around. And then you can just kind of follow them around. Beluga Dragon's going to add 5 more cannons into the mix as well. I love this mindset as well, just parking his entire army here. It's because Beluga Dragon always attacks the same location again and again. And he cannot imagine someone else not being honorable and doing that too. It's like he's completely ready for... No one has ever been more ready for 5 Banshees than Beluga Dragon. Hell, he even has the 7 Immortals there, just in case the Banshees decide to land. Now the Banshees arrive on the left side. Look at this prick. He has to move his entire army there. God forbid that you split off your anti-air units. We wouldn't want that. Observers first. Hasn't built any Phoenixes yet, by the way, as basically the entire fort base is being slaughtered. You get a cloak, but luckily observers are nearby. Stands in the Banshee range with every anti-ground unit that exists. As Novelgin is struggling here with the wall. Hate to see it. Absolutely hate to see it. 2 more cannons coming in. No, sorry, what am I saying? 5 more cannons coming in. Money's actually relatively tight. You could say that is because Beluga Dragon is macroing well, but that would be a lie, because Beluga Dragon actually just has very little income. That is why the money is being spent well. It is relatively simple to spend if you get like $150 a month, you know? No one's going to be impressed by the fact that you managed to spend that on a single grocery run, no. If you're Jeff Bezos, you know, you're running out of cash at the end of the month, then people are starting to get interested. Like, oh, this guy is good freaking macro. Yeah, it's good freaking macro. Beluga Dragon, not so much. Moves over towards the middle here, towards his 3rd base. This is the kind of the final push. You know, when you're like defending the I think it's called, the code mission calls Temple of the Past. When you're, like the last 2 minutes, there's like Zerg drops coming down and freaking Zerathul's sister shows up to start smacking you in the face. Like, you know, it's like the epic ending. That is kind of what Beluga Dragon is preparing for here. It's like the final attack, and Novelgin is quickly preparing for that final attack. He's adding in 4 more starports, because what he really needs right now is more Banshee production. 25 mines over here. Thors, no planetary, sadly. Neither player has built a worker, I think, in the past 5 minutes or so. His economy is always going to be overrated. That's another CC and is going there with 4 SCVs, also allowed. Every depot has a little cap on top of it. Infinite depot drops. What is our Banshee count right now? We have 9 Banshees. 9 Banshees. That is indeed a large number. One could say that if you have 9 Banshees, you could make a case for finding like an anti-Banshee cure. I mean, whenever Protoss plays has like 3 Templars, Terrans, they have to rush into Ghosts to make sure they don't just lose the game instantly. But for whatever reason, like I said, with the Banshee, this logic just doesn't track. Like, people just don't want to build Phoenixes. Oh, no, he does. Oh, look, I really did not expect Phoenixes to be built here today. I really did not expect that at all. This, by the way, when it comes to the Banshee micro, is honestly not that bad. Like, kiting Archons with Banshees is not super simple, or shouldn't be super simple. If there's Blink, by the way, oh, there's no Blink. These Blink, I was gonna say, these Stalkers should be doing a much better job. Banshees can continue kiting. I'm not sure how effective or efficient it is, but it's at least keeping someone busy. And that someone is Beluga Dragon. Alright, now it's just over. So, here you are with your, what is it, 7 starports. He's not chasing the Banshees though with the Phoenixes. It's because he only has a single control group. People often ask me, it's like, hey, how bad is it if I use F2 a lot? If I use my all army hotkey? I usually say it's not that bad, as long as you are also capable of like using stuff separately. Phoenixes are gonna get split off towards the bottom side right now with the Observer. Oh, there's 4 Phoenixes as well. So this should be the end of the Banshee story, no? And there's 10 Banshees out. We're adding 5 barracks and 2 Ghost Academies. In case the first one didn't work, you'll get a second one. Like, army-wise, I'm not even sure who I'm liking more here. 9 tanks, 10 Banshees, 7 Thors, and 20 Mines. Against 11 Zealots, 7 Immortals, 5 Archons, 2 Colossus, 9 Stalkers, and 5 Templar without Storm. So this is just for feedback on the Banshees. The feedback has to be one of the worst counters to Banshees I've seen in my entire life. If that is like your specific counter. Like, Templar aren't necessarily very fast. They also die very quickly. Oof. It's gonna cost them a couple of cannons. Okay, here we go. Here comes the group. Okay, Banshees are kind of struggling here, not gonna lie. Let's see what our Phoenixes are doing. Phoenix actually are gonna be chasing here. Might be capable of getting a couple of these Banshees now. There we go. This is nice. See, this is how you kind of do it. I would really recommend just flying with the Phoenixes in front and killing all of them. And I feel like this might empower Beluga Dragon to walk up the same ramp once more with his entire army. Yes, there we go. Beautiful stuff. All of the Archons, they're move commanding. So 60% of the army just died here trying to walk up to a ramp to go to the right side, because that's really where he wanted his army to go to. This, once again, is why having separate control groups can be very useful. And I love that Beluga Dragon, he immediately identified the problem here. He's like, how could I possibly have done that fight better? And he realizes that he'll need Phoenix range for that. Because with Phoenix range, perhaps he would have been capable of killing 1 or 2 extra Banshees. And if he kills those extra Banshees, he doesn't have to move command his entire army into this spot while he's down over here. So I think one of the like the biggest markers of improvement in the future is being capable of analyzing your own mistakes correctly. And Beluga Dragon definitely tries. So that is something, because without trying, you will never succeed. You know, write that down in your little quote book. Holy crap. Without trying, you never succeed. That's good. What the hell? I know I'll have a career after StarCraft. Writing quotes for websites. Tempest is not even going to be... whoa. I was like 100% sure there's going to be Phoenix range. But instead it's going to be Tempest. I like that as well. The opponent only has 8 Thors as counters to that. That is actually an interesting call. That is a very interesting call. I had not expected this at all, because it doesn't make a lot of sense. The Thor is such a good counter to the Tempest, as long as there's no counter to the Thor. And the counter to the Thor tends to be either Immortals or Disruptors. So you first kind of want to make sure that the Thors can't kill your stuff, and then you can add Tempest to poke at your opponent from a distance. Unironically, Storm is also pretty decent against Thors, because they're so slow at moving, so you often get a lot of damage on them. Like you throw down 3-4 Storms, and these guys lose a lot of HP. Now, this is, I think, the first attack that Novel Jin is making in the entire game after the initial Cyclone push. And I see how useful these 2 Tempests are gonna be. They're taking infinite damage. Phoenixes here to die fast. Tempest here to die fast. Rest of the army now at least A moving into this composition. Feedback Man is still here. Ghosts are cloaking. Mines are burrowing in forward. And Noveljin will end up losing a grand total of 16 supply. That cannon almost manages to go up to 18 there, but the Banshees stay alive. Wow, Protoss is really shit. GG. I think this is one of these issues. I sometimes have this as well when I'm cooking a new dish, you know? Or when I'm cooking in general. Like I'll be making my pasta with the roasted paprika, you know? And then you taste like, oh my god, pasta with roasted paprika is really shit. But there is something as well that has to do with the execution there, you know? Like you pour half a can of salt into it and you forget the roasted paprika. It might not actually be the recipe that's crap or the food or the ingredients, but it might be the person of charge and, you know, of mixing everything and executing. I feel like that might be the case here. Some evidence, you know, some points of evidence that kind of points towards that is the fact that whenever you fight, you always walk up a ramp, and in 50% of your fights, you start the fight with a move command, leading you to lose majority of your army. You also had already won the game after your first attack, but then decided to go home for no apparent reason, did not keep on any pressure, did not have any vision on what your opponent's army was doing, and then struggled for 4 minutes trying to figure out what the hell the counter was to Banshee. Like, you took more damage to these Banshees than while having like 40 cannons already ready on the map. Like, sometimes your people lose like a bunch of stuff to Banshees because they didn't have any static ready, but you had Stargates ready, observer speed, cannons. Like, yeah, like the nail was in the wood and you had the hammer in the hand and then you smash yourself in the head and had to go to the hospital. I was like, freaking Banshees. And like, not sure if it's the Banshee or hitting yourself in the head with the hammer, but perhaps, my dear friend Beluga Dragon, we will never know. What I do know, however, is that it is not Terran that is imbalanced, but it is you who sucks. And that's the way that it is. That's going to be it for me today. If you did enjoy this episode of Is It Imba or Do I Suck? Be sure to smack the like button, like your life depends on it. Be sure to imbalance complaint from yourself down in the description below. And I'll see all of you next time for a new video. I love you with all my heart. And I'll see you next time.